because we had a lot of Bengali devotees there. And they have natural instinct for kirtan. So we're going to test it here as well. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र वज्रपाल शिव प्रभुपाद की जय गौर प्रेमानंदे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
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 ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। तुझे पानी मुझे भगवत गीता ही बोल।
क्या ही So let's read the prayers before we start. Om Agyantimirandasya. Can read together? It's on introduction. If you see the introduction page, whichever Bhagavad Gita copy you have. Om Agyantimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Savaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Madhan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Varevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
So we are reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text number 8. So we're going to cover up 8 and 9 because they're related with each other together today. Nityam kuru karma tvam karma jayo he akarmanaha sharira yatra pichate na prasidite akarmanaha. Anybody would like to read?
नियतं कुरु कर्मत्वं कर्म ज्यायो हि कर्मणः शरीर यात्रापि चातेन प्रसद्येद कर्मणः
नित्यं कुरु कर्मा त्वं
नियतं कुरु कर्म त्वं
कर्मा ज्यो हि अकर्मणा
कर्म ज्यायो हि कर्मणः
शरीरायत्रापि चातेन
शरीरायात्रापि च तेन
प्रसिद्धे अकर्मणा
प्रसद्येद कर्मणः.
Anybody else? You can read the 9th one as well. Yajnartha karmano ananyatra
कर्मणोऽन्यत्र
loko yam karma bandhanaha
लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धनः
tad artham karma kaunteya
तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय
mukta sangha samachara
मुक्तसङ्गः समाचर यज्ञार्थतः कर्मणोऽन्यत्र
यज्ञार्थकर्मणोऽन्यत्र
लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धनः
लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धनः
तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय
तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय
मुक्तसङ्गः समाचर
मुक्तसङ्गः समाचर यज्ञात् कर्मणोऽन्यत्र
यज्ञार्थकर्मणोऽन्यत्र
लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धनः
लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धनः
तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय
तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय
मुक्तसङ्गः समाचर
मुक्तसङ्गः समाचर
Anybody else?
यजनारथ कर्मणो नेत्र
यज्ञार्थकर्मणोऽन्यत्र
लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धना
लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धनः
तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय
तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय
मुक्तसङ्गः समाचर
मुक्तसङ्गः समाचर
Translation: perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. Number 9. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way, you will always remain free from bondage. We're going to highlight some of the key things Prabhupada is explaining in the purport. So the text number 8, it talks about action. Generally, the concept of spiritual life outside world, which you must have seen, is inaction, right? Renouncing everything. Kuch nahi karna. That's spiritual life, typically. But here, Krishna is refuting that in verse number 8 itself. And Krishna is saying that even to maintain your own body, that's the word, if you read the second line, Sharira Yatra. Even to make, Yatra is journey, right? Even for this body to maintain, you have to do some action. So this first point is that inaction is being ridiculed or smashed, that you have to act, which means action is better than inaction. Is that correct? So that's number one. And the second one, then now you know that we already studied. Krishna says that there are two kinds of actions one do: bad action and a good action. Bad action has bad results. Good karma has good results. But both means bondage, because that means you have to accept a body, come back again, take birth again, and undergo those good or bad results. So in first verse he says action, but then he says what kind of action, how to do that action so that it doesn't bond you or doesn't result in bondage. So he says do it for the pleasure of Vishnu. That's what the first word in the next verse 3.9 Krishna says is yajnartha. So yajna actually means Vishnu. So whenever we do yajna, any homa, any something like that, because of course we don't know Sanskrit deeply, we don't understand certain meanings, but actually whenever swaha happens, it's actually Agni takes it, but it eventually goes to Vishnu. Okay? You can ask even sometimes some, the pujari or the priest, that eventually it goes actually to via demigods, it's actually given to Vishnu only, okay? Or Krishna, whatever. We are okay. If somebody says Vishnu is God, yes, that's a correct understanding. So we're going to now, of course, dwell a little deeper. So I want to highlight some lines in purport in 3.8, and of course then we move to 3.9. Anybody would like to read from this line, from the fourth line? Lord Krishna did not want.
Lord Krishna did not want Arjuna to become a pretender. Rather, the Lord desired that Arjuna perform his prescribed duties as set forth for Kshatriya. Arjuna was a householder and a military general, and therefore it was better for him to remain as such and perform his religious duties as prescribed for the householder Kshatriya.
Yes, thank you. So here Krishna, you can see does not want Arjuna to enact. That's what Arjuna was actually putting forward, that I don't want to fight, I better take sannyas and I leave. Krishna says no, because you have a certain prescribed duty, because you're a military general, which is Prabhupada explaining here, and you're also a householder. It's like a householder who doesn't want to go to office. He says, I don't want to earn. And actually it's not, and I may want to become a Hare Krishna, but within our movement it's not accepted. You see? This is very important, because this has become a kind of, some people misrepresent spirituality through those actions. And what is Prabhupada calling them? Lord Krishna did not want Arjuna to become a pretender. It's a very strong word, right? We pretend what we are not. So we are supposed to do those actions. And why we should do those actions is because without doing those prescribed duties, we won't be able to purify ourselves. So one of our acharyas, his name is Baladev Vidyabhushan. So he wrote a beautiful commentary on Bhagavad Gita, and he makes this very beautiful point that once we start doing our prescribed duties, then what does it result in? He says it results in purification, because we are still contaminated inside our heart. But once we start following our duties religiously, like a mother, wife, taking care, or for Prabhu's working outside, getting Lakshmi, so it purifies them. And it results in jnana, the second level. It results in knowledge. And then gradually they come to a stage where they're able to accept. So there's no shortcut even when you lead a life of action also, following your prescribed duties. And it is also said, he says, performing activities is better than renouncing all actions out of enthusiasm. Then he says, which we just explained, because the performance of duties will gradually lead to attainment of jnana. And jnana will not arise when your heart is contaminated, when your heart is polluted. But if you see, in today's world, what to speak of, here we are talking of the people renouncing prematurely. But in today's world, you see that people don't renounce only. I was recently traveling and I met he was a very senior guy in a very big company, and I met him. I have never met him before, but I met him first time. So we were always on the phone. And I found him very enthusiastic, although he's like a kind of a consultant or something. And I met him in a hotel. And when I met him in a hotel first time, I saw, he ordered some coffee or some tea. Literally, I'm telling you, it took him literally 60 seconds to pick that cup up and take a sip, and he was literally shaking. And I realized that he has achieved so much in his life. Then I realized that he was actually 70 plus, but he's still working. Of course, people take it as, see, I'm very active and all, and this and that. I'm telling you, this is no good. It's not intelligent. You need to prepare for your, for your next life. Spirituality, nothing. So people are not renouncing at all. Forget premature. We're talking here about one who prematurely renounces things. And even that is also, Bhagavad Gita teaches us actually the right time. How many times we have said this statement, you should know when to hang your boots? कभी कभार आप एक्टर को देखते हैं, बोलते हैं यार ये बस हो गया इसका, ये कब बंद करेगा? You know, some players, and they become a liability, and then you start talking, right? So this is very, very important. If you do not have an exit plan when you before entry, it's going to be extremely difficult. That's the problem. There is no exit plan. It's the same cycle: college, school, college, marriage, kids, and then you just round and round and round. You need to have an exit plan. How many of you bought flats? You got homes here, right? Can you tell me your buying process? What did you see in a flat? Would you buy a flat without a hall, main hall? Can you buy it? You're very convinced, no. Would you buy a flat which doesn't have a bedroom? No? Okay, very good. Would you buy a flat which is without a kitchen? Okay, can we live in all these flats which I just mentioned? We can. Can we have a flat without a toilet? Exit plan is important more than even kitchen. You see? Sorry, it may sound very graphic to you people. But Baba, this is important. It's not the entry. It's not the kitchen. You can but it's the exit. When a thief watches a property which he wants to steal from, he spends a lot of time in making a detailed plan. And you know where he puts up a lot of time and effort? On which? Load hoga na. Entry is okay, but it's the exit plan he focuses more. That once I pick up, how do I run? So in the same way we have come here, in this life, we must have an exit plan. And that's why Krishna is trying to say that there will be pretenders who will say inaction is spirituality. No. Spiritual life is very dynamic. It's not inaction. And that's what Krishna explains further in the next verse. It's a beautiful story I want to share. I love stories. There was a Brahmana, his name was Kahoda. He was from Kannauj. And after some years of work, things like that, he got little, boss jad deta to humko renunciation aa jata hai. Chhod do isko, aag lage is company. I leave tomorrow. The husband comes to wife, the wife people, chhod do, aage ka koi pata nahi. He was something like that, and he actually left. He became a renunciate, leaving his elder mother just like that, and he became a renunciate. Now, because he became a renunciate, he was traveling all across India, everywhere, in the whole Bharatvarsha. Of course, gradually you gain some powers, right? And one day he was taking a bath in a river, and he kept his clothes under a tree. But some of the birds, they did what they do, on his clothes, right? And this renunciate Baba, he's taking a bath, and he looks at them, and he gets a little angry, and he looks at the birds like this with anger, and they burn to ashes. They burn to ashes. And he didn't know this. And then he realized, oh my God, I got some powers. This is good. So anyway, he picks up the clothes, goes for Bhiksha. And he goes to Bhiksha. This is very, very interesting, because we all are mostly householders here. So he goes to a place where there lives a household lady who takes good care of my family. Vanamansi or something like that. So he says, Bhiksham Dehi, and she doesn't come out. And he said it 3 times. So she came out, she said, can you wait for some time because I'm serving my husband? And he gets angry. And he looks at her like this, with eyes dragging with anger. And the lady said, do you think I'm those birds? You're going to burn? And he's like, my God, who are you? How do you know? He said, just by the dint of my service to my husband. I know things. And he said, you should stop this premature renunciation, which you're trying to do. You go back home and take care of your mother. You'll get married, and you should get married. There's a lady, and you'll have one son. Once the son grows, then you should renunciate everything. Then you should become a sannyasi. And then he falls flat at her feet. And then goes back, takes care of his mother. He gets married, he has a son. The son grows old eventually, and then he takes sannyas. It's a very beautiful, powerful story. You see this? A big renunciate and the household lady. Right? Prescribed duties. You see this, our old generation, our parents, when you talk to them, you see how their lives are? Very sorted. आपने देखा है क्या ये? Am I right or wrong? Huh? Very sorted. हर एक चीज, responsibilities, and that's why you see how they live, how they take care. Everything is sorted. Because they did fulfill their prescribed duties. So while we are in this race, please make sure our prescribed duties being taken care of. This is very, very, very important. And let's go to the next verse, which is actually a very, very important verse. I'm not a prolific Sanskrit scholar or something, but if you can, and those of you who want, should memorize this verse. It's a very, very important and powerful verse in Bhagavad Gita chapter 3. And here Prabhupada is explaining, work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed, otherwise work causes bondage. I think we discussed this. Can anybody read the purport? This has some very important points which we want to discuss today.
Since one has to work even for simple maintenance of the body, the prescribed duties for a particular social position and quality are so made that the purpose can be fulfilled. Yagna means Lord Vishnu or sacrificial performances. All sacrificial performances also are meant for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. I continue?
Yeah, please.
The Vedas enjoin Yagno Vai Vishnuha. In other words, the same purpose is served whether one performs prescribed yagnas or directly serves Lord Vishnu. Krishna consciousness is therefore performed by yagna, as it is prescribed in this verse. The Varnashram institution also aims at satisfying Lord Vishnu. Varnashrama cha ravata purushena parha puman Vishnu aradhyate. Therefore, one has to work for the satisfaction of Vishnu. Any other work done in this material world can be the cause of bondage, for both good and evil work have their reactions, and any reaction binds the performer.
Yes, thank you. So this is what we discussed also. So here, in one of these commentaries, Mahabharata is being quoted, and it says, Karmana bandyate jantu. Jantu means people. And what is karmana? Karmana means the action. It bandyate means it binds, it creates bondage. But immediately Ved Vyas also explains that the work, but if it's done for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, then that work, which normally causes bondage, will actually create freedom for the same person. Like for example, eating. Bhagavad Gita says, even you're a vegetarian, like what is the biggest non-vegetarian people, when they accuse vegetarian people, they say, but plants also have life. Right? They say this, right? So you are also killing, they say. But devotees, they eat prasad, which is offered to Krishna. In a way they are right, because of course the sin is not that high, but for non-vegetarianism, for example, because those animals have blood, they got relationship, right? The consciousness level is very high than the plants. So if you pluck plants or cut plants, of course, there's some reaction to that, but not as high as animals, right? But what devotees do is they take prasadam, you see. So here in this verse, it said quoted in Mahabharata, which is said is karmana bandhyate chantuhu. It means that the karma, the action, will bind the jiva to this world. But if that karma is done for the pleasure of the Lord, for the pleasure of Vishnu, then it doesn't cause bondage. For example, as I said, this food, it will bind us in karma, but because you offer the same food to Krishna and then you eat it, it's called prasad. And when you eat prasad, what happens? You develop and you become advanced in spiritual life, and eventually you can, go back to the spiritual world, or what you call moksha, whatever you want to call it, right? So it can free. Same thing. It's just when Krishna is added or Vishnu is added to that action, that same bondage will become freedom. So dharma, which means here, it's written as sacrificial or scriptural duties. When they are offered to Vishnu, it becomes automatically yajna. Our concept of yajna means fire sacrifice. No, what you're doing at home is also yajna. Cooking for your family is actually yajna. Doing household chores is yajna. If Vishnu is in the center, if Krishna is a part of it. For example, your house, you have a nice temple, you have a nice altar. It's the most prominent place in your house. So then house doesn't stay house. It becomes temple. Just by visiting house, you can imagine, you can see which is the most prominent place. That person is the point of attraction. Or he's the point of center or center of the house. It's very important. So when you have a nice temple at home, everybody comes every day morning, does little worship. Patram pushpam phalam tam. It's not very complicated. Krishna has made it very, very simple. Sometimes we complicate things. We think, it's too high, better not to do only. Now sometimes you tell the kid, kal puri book ka exam hai. Okay. Anyway, I'm failing, so better why to do it only, No, Krishna's made it very simple. Patram pushpam phalam toyam. If you are so poor, you don't have anything, you have some patram, you have some leaf, pushpam, flower, phalam, you got some fruit. Toyam, you're so poor, you don't even have fruit, you have some water. You just offer it with love, that's it, I'll accept it. We had a very beautiful story comes to my mind. We had one of the Goswamis who came 500 years ago and who unearthed Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. This is the power of Kali Yuga. Krishna came 5,000 years ago and he did Leela in Vrindavan. But after some time, gradually with the advent of Kali Yuga, all these pastimes where Krishna killed Kaliya or big demons, they all got covered. You can imagine 600 years ago, when you go to Vrindavan, they didn't know where did Krishna kill Kaliya. There was no Radha Kund, there was no Sham Kund. There'd become some puddles of water in some fields. It's unbelievable sometimes you think. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent these Goswamis, the 6 Goswamis they call them. And the eldest one was Sanatana Goswami. They were not brothers, but 2 of them were brothers. But rest of them came from different families, but then the title was given to them. So Sanatana Goswami, he had a deity. His name was Radha Madan Mohan. So you can see the temple. It's one of the most beautiful temples of Vrindavan on the banks of Yamuna, of red sandstone temple. And when you go in the summers, you go very close to the temple. It's at a small door. You can see the deity. You will see a cool breeze coming out in summer. And when you go in the winter, you can see a little warm air coming. It was designed in such a way. So Sanatana Goswami had this deity, Radha Madan Mohan, but he had nothing to offer him. So he would hang him in a bag under every day, every night, different tree, and he would make some this is called as a Vraja roti. Vrindavan they make some rotis with some rice flour and some mixed wheat or something. Very basic. So he'd offer to Krishna. And then one day Krishna actually came in his dream. He said, "My dear Sanatan, you're offering with so much love I'm taking, but it's very difficult. Can you add some salt? Because just eating this roti is getting very difficult. And then Sanatan Goswami said, but what can I do? Whatever you're giving me, I'm offering it to you. I do madhukari. Madhukari is like a madhu, the honeybee. It goes to some flowers. So some renunciates, they do madhukari. So they go to 5 homes or 3 homes, they decide. If they get, they will eat. If they don't get from them, that's it. They will sit and do their bhajan. Of course, we cannot imitate that. So Krishna said, my dear Sanatan, add some salt so that I can at least swallow it. It's getting really difficult. So this is Krishna. He is not looking for pakvans and 56 feasts or something. What he's wanting is our love. He's looking for our surrender. Krishna wants us. He doesn't want our things. What can we give to Krishna? Prabhupada says it in one lecture, very beautiful. He says, what can we give to Krishna anyway? Everything belongs to Krishna. Even this body we are so proud of, we so lovingly take care of. We spend so much money to take care of our body. Even this body is not ours. Our relatives will burn it. Yesterday when I was flying from Bombay, as soon as I got into the flight, after a couple of hours, I switched on and I was doing some office work, on the internet. I was just doing messaging and all. And my wife messaged me. She said, my grandfather passed away while I was on the flight. And of course, all my memories came back. Of course, he's my mother's uncle, but we were very close. And I recently went to his home and he chanted with me and we did kirtan for him, and while listening, he was listening to this chanting. I had given him a box of chanting. And the first time I gave him Gopi Chandan, he did this tilak like this. So he put tilak and I felt he was very happy. So what I'm saying is basically, even this body, then I called them yesterday morning when I reached here. And I said, what happened? And I said, yeah. And then I said, have you done all the rituals? I said, yeah. But again, the body is burnt. They burned the body. Right? So even the body is not ours. So what Krishna is looking for is our love in our heart. He wants some space. And when you connect your actions with Krishna, you're actually trying to create that space in your heart. You're adding Krishna to your life. You're getting up in the morning, the first thing you're remembering, okay, I take a shower, I sit 10 minutes and chant Hare Krishna. Very simple. Does it take like millions of dollars? Or does it take too much of effort? No. Yeah, it becomes too much of an effort because we are not used to it. It's so pure. Sometimes you see, it's so pure that we can't even connect with it. But Krishna allows us by the mercy of Prabhupada. What we are trying to teach or share with you is nothing what Prabhupada gave to some of his students, and though they gave to their students, they gave it to us, and we're just sharing it with each other here. Ultimately, it's Krishna's. But this is something which is very important. So here, the core message of this verse is that yes, we have to act. We cannot, there's no possible that we cannot act and survive. As it said that even for this body, Sharira Yatra is also action is required. But if we act, Mahabharata says, then there is bondage. But then how do we become free of that bondage? Is by offering those actions to Vishnu. Now somebody may say, Prabhu, I am working outside. I hardly get time to come and I don't cook. Many of you Prabhus are working outside. So you're earning through actions, right? You're getting some fruits. So you can offer some part of that Lakshmi for the service of Krishna. Then your work also becomes spiritualized. So this message of these 2 verses, if we have to summarize it properly, would be there is regulated duty, right? Regulated duty. In addition to that is selfless offering to Krishna. Regulated duty, which means prescribed duty. plus our selfless offering to Krishna will result in advancement in bhakti and no bondage, which means no karma. Karma free food, we call it, right? Many of the restaurants I see, they write karma free food. We want to live a karma free life, and this is the only way. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, one of the very beautiful scriptures is called as Nectar of Devotion in English, if you translate it, by Rupa Goswami. It gives a very beautiful verse, and I want to share this with all of you. You can repeat after me. Iha yasya harer dase
Yasya haridase
karmana manasa gira
karmana manasa gira
nikhalasvam api abasthu avasthasu Jivan mukta sa ujjate.
Jivan mukta sa ujjate.
This verse, this last line is very important. Jivan mukta sa ujjate. It says that if one engages in the service of the Lord, how? Through his life, wealth, words, intelligence, karmana, manasa, gira, and everything he possesses, it is said he will always be liberated in any condition. Such a person is called as Jivan Mukta. This verse term used here is Jivan Mukta, which means he is liberated even while he is living. This is the power of bhakti. People are saying that when I give up my body, I'll get moksha and this and that. Bhakti is so powerful that it can make you Jivan Mukta within this lifetime itself. And Prabhupada's Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur, he explains, this is very beautiful. Krishna bhajane yaha hoya anukula, Krishna bhajane yaha hoya anukula, Vishaya baliya tyaga, taha haya bula. It said, if one is so expert that if he can engage or dovetail everything in the service of Krishna, to give up material assets and material life will be a great blunder. Very beautiful. You understand the point? So if somebody can use all what you have, like today, they have this very beautiful home. It costs quite a lot in Singapore. If you can use it for the service of Krishna, then giving it up is a very big blunder. You see? Very beautiful, right? So we are not talking about giving up. What we are trying to say is bhakti process is dovetailing. Somebody's a beautiful singer, for example. Should she give up singing? No. She should sing bhajans of Krishna or kirtan of Krishna. George Harrison, when he met Prabhupada in 1971, he was a part of the Beatles group. Young generation may not know who's Beatles. It's something, I don't know, who's the best pop group today? Do you know?
A lot of K-pops.
K-pops, huh? I don't know. Whoever. I know only K2, which is the highest mountain peak. So Beatles, at one time they said they were so famous that they were more famous. They made a very, one of the lead singers, he made a statement which was very controversial. He said, Beatles are even more famous than Jesus Christ. Like for example, George Harrison, when he had a birthday, these big vans of the post office, big vans, 21 of them were filled, everything was filled with postcards because people sent him on his birthday. And it said that in New York, when they did the first concert, one of the doctors, he got sick. So he came to check him up, and his sister was there. And he told his sister that please make sure George gets his medicine on time. And as I can see, he said there is no sane girl in New York right now because they know Beatles are here. They're going to perform. Right? It was crazy. But when he met Prabhupada, he actually got very intrigued because he said, I'm very disconnected with this whole fame and name, and I feel it's temporary. And he had maybe past life karma like that, and he gave You know, you have some Krishna book, right? You must have taken a book called Krishna, right? That book was printed by George Harrison in 1971. He paid 19,000 pounds that time to Prabhupada, and he said he won. And he wrote the preface of that book. And if you read that preface, boy, it's out of the world. You will see that he must be some great philosopher. And then in the end, there's a signature of his, and he writes in his own handwriting, all you need is, and in the bracket he writes, love Krishna. Hari Bol, George Harrison, 1971, something like that. But Prabhupada, he wanted to leave everything. He said, it's better I join the Hare Krishna movement. And Prabhupada said, no. But he was insisting that he must join. Prabhupada said, no, you are a talented singer and people follow you. Right? You're a leader. Yadyad acharati shreshthas tattad evataro janaha. That when a leader, whatever he does, the common people will follow. Right? You know, the hero creates a new hairstyle and next day you see everybody has that hairstyle. So he said, you should not join. You write songs for Krishna and the people will follow. And then he wrote very beautiful songs. All things must pass. Living in the material world. My sweet Lord. My sweet Lord is purely on his love for Krishna. And I know many devotees, many people in Europe especially and America who became devotees in 1970s and early 80s by hearing that song. By hearing that song. Because it has Hare Krishna Mahamantra also. How many of you heard that song? You should. My sweet Lord. It's very beautiful. You see the lyrics of that song. So you can use the talent, whatever you have, for Krishna. As soon as the connection of Krishna is there, George Harrison used his talent, he used his musical ability to preach the Hare Krishna movement, to preach the glories of Mahavishnu or Krishna. And in that way, his whole work, actually, which normally causes bondage in this world, became a stepping stone for him to be liberated. And in 2001 November, when he was passing away, somehow or the other, by very divine arrangement, devotees came. And they were chanting while he was on the deathbed. And the last thing George Harrison heard was Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And one of the most beautiful touching part is in 1977, November, in Vrindavan, when Prabhupada was leaving the world. And you can see, imagine, you know, the body is gone, but of course Prabhupada's purely focused, a pure devotee. He took off one of his rings and he gave it to one of his disciples and he said, please give it to George. Because he knew how deeply he connected so many people. Not he himself first of all connected, but he made that connection possible for millions and millions of people to connect with Krishna, to chant Krishna's name. And so here, there's a very beautiful example I want to share. Material activities for sense gratification are the causes of material bondage, whereas the same activity done for the satisfaction of Krishna are the cause of liberation. Now somebody may question, how come the same activity can lead to bondage as well as freedom? Right? Is it a good logical question to ask? This is a beautiful example. One may get indigestion by eating too many milk preparations. Rabdi, doodh, malai, you know. Your stomach gets upset if you drink too much milk. And what is the antidote?
Don't eat.
Huh? Mataji ko simple hai, don't eat. So the antidote is in milk itself.
Dahi.
Exactly, dahi. It settles down the stomach, right? Problem किससे हुआ? Milk से, milk products से, right? And ठीक किससे हुआ? Milk का ही preparation से हुआ, but the form is different. So the same activity, just because it's connected with Vishnu, it leads to freedom. I have too many points, but let's conclude our discussion here. Our takeaway was first of all, Krishna refused inaction. Action is higher than inaction. That is very important. And when you act, so the next level is you act according to your prescribed duties. Wife, mother, husband, son, please take care of that. It's tough in the material world today, but good things, if you want to do good things, it's a pain. So one must do that. Because otherwise you need to pay it off in a different way, and which can be actually much more painful. It's better we take that pain. Level higher up again from there is if I can connect these prescribed duties in relationship with Krishna or Vishnu. If we're going to meet our parents, we tell them about chanting, we give them a Bhagavad Gita, we tell them you should read this, give them some chanting box, Mahamantra, some mala. Engage people around us who are dependent on us in some way or the other with Krishna. I become very happy when you bring your kids with you. That's also prescribed duty. You're allowing your children to hear. They may understand, they may not understand. It doesn't make a difference. The medicine works. When sometimes your child, when he or she was young, they get cold, cough, fever. You put some medicines. I mean, what is his understanding of the child about medicine? Nothing. But the medicine, it works. So inaction is not recommended. Everyone must work. Work should be done as a duty, not today when we see sometimes people do actions, but it's all whimsical. What do I like? I like to be separated, or I would like to be independent, and this and that. That's interdependence is a much higher principle in this human form of life. Interdependence. And selfish work creates bondage, but the same work done for the pleasure of Vishnu will be the result or reason for our freedom. Same action. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions or comments? We stop here. Hare Krishna.